morning, children. Oops, I've just flicked that on. So today we're carrying on with our writing to persuade, and we're focusing in on rhetorical questions. So I'm going to show you some examples of rhetorical questions. You are used to them, they're around you. So have a little look here. How will you eat yours? That is a question, and it's used in advertising. So a rhetorical question is a really good way of making you think about something, but it's not a question that you need to answer. So it's trying to persuade you and make you think. I saw that one, need more summer, and I thought that was a good one. I do need more summer. I'm not sure how to get it unless anyone wants to send me to the Maldives for half term. I'm quite happy to do that if anyone feels they want to. And so the other one is, so now what's your excuse? The Nike Air one. So you've got nice trainers and you can go for a run. So that's a rhetorical question, a question that you don't need to answer, but it makes you think, and you're using it to try and persuade people. So if we go on to our next slide, we need to put what we do and our thinking into the context of what we're learning against. So our big question, and the thing that we're going to write our letter about when we get to it, is we're going to write about persuading people that a wind farm is a good idea. And so if we're going to persuade people that a wind farm is a good idea, and we want to use a rhetorical question, we've got to think about the things that make it a good idea that we can then turn into rhetorical questions. So I've got a list here. We've got clean, renewable energy. That's a good thing about wind farm. If you use a wind farm, you've got clean, renewable energy. You all know what that means because we've done that in our science. You've got lower CO2 emissions, which means we're not burning fossil fuels and releasing CO2 into the atmosphere, which causes global warming. And then we might talk about, so people might say it looks horrible, but you might use your understanding of art that you're going to develop and talk about it being a dynamic sculpture that enhances the view. And I certainly think it's lovely to drive towards Bow, especially when the sun's setting and you can see the moors and the wind turbines turning around, and it's really quite lovely. And then they're designed to stop noise pollution is one. And one of the things that people worry about is that they can kill birds, but the statistics is that cats can kill more birds than the wind turbines. So it's not the end of the world, is that what that's meant to tell you? So if we have a look here, I've chosen one of them. So we're looking at lower CO2 emissions. So if we want to turn that into a rhetorical question, I've come up with some of the things that means. So if we've got lower CO2 emissions, it means that our planet is getting too hot if our CO2 emissions are too high. So our planet is getting too hot. That might cause animals to lose their habitats, and that might cause flooding because the sea levels are rising, because when the planet gets too hot, our two big polar ice caps start melting. So from the idea that we want to share that wind farms are a good idea because they lower CO2 emissions, we can then take those 3 points and now see if we can turn it into a rhetorical question. So if you wanted to get people thinking the planet is getting too hot, what rhetorical question could you ask? So hopefully you've had a little think, and let's see what I came up with. Do you want our ice caps to melt? So straight away, when it's a rhetorical question, sometimes you're sort of bringing in a bit of dramatics and making it quite alarming. Do you want our ice caps to melt? So then we're looking at animals losing habitats. So animals live in obviously different places, and particularly perhaps the animals that live in the Antarctic. So I don't know if any of you know, but there's been lots of talk about penguins losing their ice, and particular some types of penguins that have their eggs on their ice. They're very worried that if the ice melts too soon, then those eggs don't have anywhere to hatch and grow, as well as polar bears in the north. So that's another idea that you might want to turn into a rhetorical question. So what you're going to do now is you're just going to pause it, use what's up here. You can see I've got the fact on the side, planet getting too hot, and then next to it, I've got the rhetorical questions. So can you come up with one for the animals losing habitats and also for flooding and rising sea levels? So you might think about the penguins. Do you not care about the penguins? And flooding because of rising sea levels. What will happen to our coastlines? So think along those lines and have a go at doing it. So you might pause it and have a go now. Okay, so hopefully you've had a go at doing that. And some of you might stop at this point because it is quite hard to think of these things. So don't worry overly if it's like, oh my goodness, I don't know what you mean. Just copy the ones I've done and have a little stop. But those of you who are really getting it and might have done that really quickly, you can move on. And this is the second one. We're looking at clean renewable energy. And so we're going to turn that into, I've sort of broken it down. So if we're using wind farms and we're making energy and electricity from clean renewable, which means it can keep going and it's clean, it means we're not burning fossil fuels. So you might be able to think of a rhetorical question for that. You know, do you want to keep on burning all the fuels? Do you want to keep on polluting our skies? And then the next one is, if we're using wind farms, then we're not building nuclear power. And some of you might have learnt about how, although nuclear power is clean and doesn't create CO2, it does create nuclear waste, which lasts for millions of years, and they've got to do something with it, and it's very dangerous. So you might think of something for that one. And then the last one is about how we don't have to put in too much CO2, which I keep saying CO2, it's carbon dioxide into the atmosphere, which causes global warming. So you might think of something along the lines of, do we want our planet to overheat? And so that might then link back to some of the ones you've done before. So just have a think, see if you can come up with a rhetorical question, and well done for children who have managed to do both. That's brilliant.